having the money. So one of the ideas that has been proposed is to do what you call bonds. You sell education bonds that allow people to study. So over 10 years, you expect that the guy who has studied through this bond will have got enough money to pay back or buy back the bond, whatever mechanism you have. And the person who put the money in the initial stage is able to get an interest out of it. That means you are actually multiplying what you call social capital. There's also other mechanisms that have come up for innovating finance. But the one key thing that you have to understand is that everybody right now, when it comes to resource mobilization, they are saying we have to get an ROI, which is a return on investment. So what's the investment return in this process you're undertaking? In the past, we used to talk about sinking funds. So you put money in, you never ask about it, you just forget about it. But now today, everybody is saying we need to find out what is the return on capital on what I'm putting my money into. And definitely there's more cultivation required for example, alumni of OILF and also philanthropists, and this is a global trend. Oops. My mouse is not moving me forward. Why isn't it moving me forward? Just hold on. Presentation from there. Okay, so the question comes or begs, what is resource mobilization from where I sit? And from the sake of this presentation, you can define it as a science of assembling and organizing resources to support preconceived objectives of an organization or an individual. And when I say preconceived organization or individual, we have to remember one thing. Even you as a person, your journey through university could be a project. You could define it as a project. And that means you have to resource mobilize for it. Resources are the inputs that we are used in the activities of a program or a project or whatever you might want to call it. It can be human, it can be money, it can be physical items. For example, if you have somebody who donates a table for you because you need it, OILF was doing that for their offices a few months ago, that is resource mobilization. Resource mobilization is not done spontaneously. So institutions don't just appear from nowhere. Yeah, that means that an institution will not wake up one morning and it's running. So you have to develop a mechanism for you to be able to resource mobilize for it. And I repeat again, and I will not get tired of repeating this, resource mobilization is greater than fundraising. And I speak to people, they always say, move away from that perspective of just fundraising, which is like a one-off event, to resource mobilization. Why we do it? Demand for services, less funding is not, there's no funding, enough funding out there. Who are inadequate funding institutions, government, NGOs, or whatever it might be, in the midst of what we call plenty. What do I mean by that? In the Kenyan context, we have a man who died just the other day, and he had 30 billion Kenya shillings in his bank. That's plenty. But there are people in Kenya who are still struggling. So why is it that people are keeping money in the bank? It's because we normally say in fundraising or in resource mobilization, money is given to those who ask for it. Or you have to ask for people to give you. What other thing that is making resource mobilization critical? Competition and the demand for growth. These are two things that at times people don't look at. They assume that every time we are raising money is because there's need, but it's because there's also competition for need. So for example, if I am sitting here and there are two people sitting in front of me, one wants money for education, the other one wants money for, I don't know, name it. That creates immediately competition. And that's why we have to think about resource mobilization in terms of fundraising and stuff like that. So where do we start? And what's the most critical space? There's something we call prospect research. Prospect research is trying to discover and evaluate who are your prospective donors, their interests, their relationships, inclination to giving, their philanthropic capacity, so that you're informed and you're sure if they can naturally support your fundraising strategic efforts. Why is that crucial? Because there are so many people out there who are willing to give or not willing to give, but then they might be giving in no relationship at all to what you're looking for. And so you might spend a lot of time doing engagement with Anthony here, and Anthony has no interest in education. Or you may have spent a lot of time engaging with, I don't know, our president is called Uhuru Kenyatta, Muigai Kenyatta, and his interest has nothing to do with health, but you're looking for funds for health. So you have to do a good prospect research for you to be able to know who to approach and where you're approaching them and how much they can give you. Some people can give you a lot of money, others can give you very little. And what does that entail? Biographical information. Money is not given to institutions. Money is given to an individual. And so for you to be able to get money from an individual, you yourself must know that individual. Okay? So both of you have to have a relationship that goes long enough for them to say, I'm going to give it to you. Sometimes people talk about proposal development. The reason donors say, when you write a proposal, I would like for you to do an introduction, is for them to get to know who you are. So you need to know the biographical information of the donor, how to contact them, their history of giving, affinity and interest, and all that. And why does this happen? Because research can be either desk-based, okay, or you look around and find who cares about your issues or motivations and use that as part of your research. Now, ask yourself, why is it that people don't do this? Why it doesn't happen? Why does it not happen? It doesn't happen because a lot of times we are in a hurry to raise money. And as talked about spontaneous, institutions are not spontaneous. We are in a hurry to raise money, so we don't take time to do our due diligence. And that is why we don't actually get to raise the funds that we require. Prospect research also requires that you spend about 80% of the time on it. Because if you do it well, you're 80% in when it comes to money. Okay? Who knows the person you're looking for? It is your networks. There's something I call 6 degrees of separation. If today I wanted to meet Pfizer, from the word go, I would ask myself, who knows Pfizer? Gabriel. Who knows Gabriel? Myself. So I already have 3 persons separation and I'm able to meet Pfizer. If I want to meet Donald Trump today, I'll ask myself, who knows Donald Trump? In my case, it is my president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. So I say, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Who knows Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta? I will think through and say the Archbishop I'm visiting today knows him. And who knows the Archbishop? I do. So at the 4th step, I can be able to meet Trump. The question is, can I convince the Archbishop of what I want from Trump? And can the Bishop convince Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta of what he wants from Trump? That is how you start developing a linkage and a network that allows you for you to reach out to these guys. Search on LinkedIn, email, Facebook, Google, and you will find out who you're trying to target. Then you have to decide how much you're going to ask for. You can ask for 100 shillings, you can ask for $1 million, you can ask for 10 million. So you need to know the person you're going to, what is it you can ask from them? That's part of your prospect research. Then map them out. Develop a database, okay, of the persons you're going to target. You need to analyze that data and you must hire the right people to do this for you. Otherwise, sometimes we assume we have an idea of how to go about things and we decide to do themselves. Not everybody can be a lawyer. Not everybody can be an engineer. Not everybody is a fundraiser. So you need to look out and say to yourself, who do I bring on board that can be able to help me in fundraising? Even within your own team, you can define who is a good person to do fundraising. Now, remember, fundraising and consultancy in fundraising doesn't necessarily mean you pay cash. Because at times people say they give up, I don't have the money. It could be pro bono. It could be that you pay up at the point of receiving the money. But there are many other ways that you can undertake because some of these consultants already know who is giving for what, and it is for you to be able to convince them that you're the right person to be given. Now, sources, funding and fundraising strategies. I will just mention, and you have to just map them out. You need to map out all the donors and develop a strategy for each. Sectoral funding. Sectoral funding means there are people who give money for health. There are people who give money for water or wash. There are people who give money for education. You have to map those out. Then there are those who go for what you call consultancy service. For example, a donor doesn't want to go looking for people to give money to. So they say, I would like to give money to for education. They hire a consultancy firm to find people who would be good recipients for that money. Another space is something we call cost sharing. Cost sharing is whereby a donor doesn't want to give you all the money. They want to see what are you contributing towards the process. That's a different kind of donor, and you have to be able to define them. So some of them don't ask for cash. Some of them ask for what you call in-kind contribution. So I might have an office space, and the donor is willing to say, okay, fine, if you have an office space, I'll give you money for the furniture, and we can do this project together. Then there's institutional donors. Institutional donors are people like the World Bank, IMF, USAID, and those ones have RFPs, requests for proposals, able to get them to come on board based on the proposal that you submit. Then you have what you call high net worth individuals. They are people who have money. I believe in Uganda, you have quite a number of guys who are wealthy. These high net worth individuals, most of the time, are approached by so many people for giving, for helping, for whatever it is. For you, ask yourself, what makes them tick? That comes from your research, your prospect research. Who knows them? How can you be connected to them? What is their interest before you actually ask anything from them? Now, those ones will always give for something that is attractive to their heart. So, for example, somebody who went through hardship when they were young and today they are a high net worth individual might give to a children's home much easier than to give to a health project. Somebody who suffered ill health when they were young and now they are got money in their pockets, they might want to give to health rather than give to education. So you need to understand these high net worth individuals. There's some people we call small givers. Small givers are people who give over time. So for example, where I'm seated right now, there is a poster on somebody who was requesting for funds for COVID-19 response. And they asked for people who can give 200 shillings, Kenya shillings a day, people who can give 1,500 shillings a week, or people who can give 6,000 shillings a month. In which way, then, there are those who call, they give a little monies, but they give it consistently. Those we call small givers. You need to identify the project you want to undertake. Is it a small giver project, or is it a high net worth individual project, kind of project? Then you have trusts and foundations, and you have the corporates. Corporates are the banks, companies that do CSR activities. And you have to look at them and say to yourself, how do you engage with them for them to give you? Those ones, you can be rest assured, for example, companies, it is always about CSR. So if you are not engaging from a CSR perspective, it becomes very difficult for them to give. Okay? Government, public spending, you have alumni support, AYLF alumni, you have people in AYLF, I think, who have been able to get somewhere. You have what you call endowments. Endowments is, for example, the guy called Chuck Finney, who is an American, who endowed all his money to university education giving. And this went mainly to Ireland. You have if you have facilities, for example, if you have offices, you can be able to generate income, or house, you can generate income out of it. There are now institutions or companies or NGOs that are now raising money through hiring out of their facilities. You have what you call multiple work assignment. What multiple work assignment means is like volunteer work. I give myself out to do some work, and in which case then I can be able to raise the resources for what I want to do, and especially when you are in numbers. So for example, when you talk about AYLF, if you have huge numbers and you volunteer yourself to do some work, like host the UN, volunteer yourselves at the UN assembly meeting, if it still takes place in Uganda, that what you get out of allowance, you can put into a pot, and it actually becomes quite a bit of substantial amount of money, or partial amount of it. Then you have loans, which is another way of resource mobilization. And guys don't think that is, but it is surely a way for raising funds. You have venture capital. Venture capital is whereby you have people who are interested in an idea you have, but they want their money back later. So they put it in, and you have to pay it back. Mostly they don't ask for you to pay it back in the interest rate of the bank, but it is actually money that has to go back. The other one is bonds, what I talked about earlier, and private-public partnerships, which is trying to get an institution that is doing public good to engage with you, who is a private citizen, to do one project together. And then there's something else we call reducing operational costs. Let me tell you guys, at times people don't think this is a part of fundraising, but it is a very crucial part of fundraising. People who are giving do not want to see wastage. And most of the times, they will always ask you, what is the operational cost? So when you're developing proposals or ideas for project development, always remember at the back of your mind that you have to show benefits of engagement through reduction of costs. Once you have that, this becomes part of your fundraising strategy, that you have to always show that if you give me 1 Ugandan shilling, I'll be able to serve 10 people. Yet that guy who you're giving 100 Ugandan shilling is only serving 1 person. So you have to think about it that way when you're developing your ideas for fundraising. Strategy and development. Strategy and development for your fundraising. When you are doing fundraising, you have to come up with a strategy. A strategy will offer you a number of things. One of them is that it organizes for success. It creates a scenario whereby you have a clear vision and a clear mission. And that clear vision and mission have to be in tandem with the donor you're approaching, so that you're not presenting a vision and a mission that are totally different from their vision and mission. It has to be realistic. It creates for you something called a realistic assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, and it helps you to figure out what is going to stop you from being able to get your target. Okay. It also allows you to carefully consider available organizational resources and the effective use of those resources. Sometimes you might be surprised that you're trying to raise money, yet what you have in stock and in your hands is enough. You actually don't need to get resources from anywhere else. Your strategy also helps you to agree on issues that are strategic and what you need to do into the future, so that you don't focus only on a daily thing. So for example, if you think about a beggar on the street, how strategic are they? Corner they're going to beg from, because they know who passes through that corner. They know how long they're going to be begging. They know whether to beg Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday, or they only do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they think strategically. They know what they're going to do with that money when they receive it. And they actually have targets for themselves. At some point, you've realized that you go through a corner where you normally see a beggar, and that day you don't see him. He probably got enough money early enough and left. So think about it that way. Fundraising is also a bigger way of, it's a more sophisticated way of begging, for lack of better way of using my words. Strategy also allows you to focus on your case for fundraising support. Okay, you're very clear. You have to be, I keep insisting on these words, you have to be very clear on what you're raising funds for. If you're not clear, do not start the process, because you'll be all over the place. It considers the barriers to implementation of your strategy. And most of the times you'd want to develop what you call an action-oriented fundraising plan, which has impacts and results that can be measured. And that allows you to actively solicit for pledges, follow up on those pledges, and make sure that you actually measure your impact and progress. Now, the models that are there are many models. I'll just mention a few. You can talk about targeting institutions that have money, or individuals that have money. There are people who focus on that. So you say model and effort applied will depend on the resources or income and target set by the institution or the individual. You should insulate funding decisions from politically correct pressure. Now, this is important. There's something we call scratch my back and scratch your back. If you get funds from a politician, be rest assured they'll expect something back from you. And I'm not talking about a politician, the ones you see who run government. A politician is anybody who has a motive that is meant to manipulate your intention. Okay, anybody who wants to manipulate your intentions. For example, somebody wants to use the youth for a specific reason to sell an agenda. That is a politician. That's what I call politically correct. Be very careful about dealing with people who have an ulterior motive in their giving. Another model is that you must take stock of past funding trends and decide on the viable mix for the future. So, for example, the money that you have got, the money that you're raising, who has given it in the past? Is it institutions only? Is it individuals? Is it what you call CSR funding? Is it RFPs? You need to take stock of that, create a trend, and then know how to do a mix. Your fundraising, your resource mobilization process always has to have a model of that mix. Small giver, big giver, high net worth individual, loan, my own money. It always has to have that mix, and you define what percentage works for you. Think about growth and partnership opportunities. Fundraising or resource mobilization is not a one person or one institution agenda. You have to keep thinking to yourself, who can you partner to do this? Look at the existing laws, because also laws can hinder you and your model. And then look at how you can collaborate with other AYLF members in organizing capital campaigns. Sometimes it works better when you're doing things collectively rather than doing by yourself. SWOT analysis, this I will leave for you to read, but basically is you have to do a SWOT for yourself, a SWOT for the organization, looking at what the strengths, the weaknesses, and opportunities are, and what are the threats when it comes to resource mobilization. Okay, and I believe this you need to do before you develop the strategy. Then you need to establish a structure. In fundraising or resource mobilization, at times people think they should, I'm going out there and trying to get money from an individual or for whatever it is, I can just go and talk to them. There has to be an institutional structure, and that is crucial. So the workings of a fundraising unit in any organization cannot assume that funds will naturally come once contacts have been made. Just simply because today I have met with, there's a gentleman from Uganda called Patrick Bitature, does not automatically mean there's money that is going to come. What is the structure that goes behind making sure that Patrick Bitature actually gives you money? Rather, such engagements call for professionalism, and this is crucial. When you are dealing with a person who is a high net worth individual or a CEO of a company, you have to be very professional for them to be able to engage with you and think it is important to give you. So you have to show structure. You have to show, this is me, I'm the CEO of my NGO. This is my finance person. He's a guy who manages the money. He will tell you how he can manage the money. This is the person who does the projects themselves. They are going to tell you how to implement. This is the engineer. He's the one who's going to measure the dam, going to measure whatever it is. That's how they're going to do it. Without that kind of conversation, the giver finds it a bit uncomfortable to give. So the structure of an organization contributes in several ways to the functioning of the organization, and that is crucial. If you have to show, you have to engage with a donor, you have to show how you're structured to make sure that you deliver on the resources that you're requesting for. The structure and the mode of resource mobilization unit is significant for the actualization of the mandate of such a unit, for the overall corporate objective or individual objective that you want to achieve. That structure, think about it. Not all structure does the same, but it has to function for you and what you want to deliver. So the financial management policies that you put in place are also crucial. Donors give funds in trust, and thus each organization must put in place measures to safeguard donor interests. If you are not safeguarding my money and I'm giving it to you, I will not. You have to show me how you're going to safeguard it. Reputation is key. If at all, for one reason or another, you are doubted by the donor, and your reputation is doubted, they will not give you the resources. Your values, your ethics, and integrity in resource mobilization is also essential. If at all, your values say, I am a Christian, do not change them because you're trying to raise money from an atheist. Be very clear, your values are Christian, and stick to that. Put in place policies for allocation of resources, policies that define how you're going to spend your money, and people must see that in advance. It doesn't have to be a document written. Let me tell you, sometimes people think policies are documents that are written. Policies also come with what you call practice. So people have to see a particular way that you do things that define policy. Then you need to assess risk and develop the risk management strategies. Now, people who are called patrons, board members, top management, what is their role in fundraising? Because sometimes we have AYLF has a board, or AYLF has a patron, or let's say the NGO that you are trying to support or CBO has a patron. The governance body is responsible for guiding formulation to resource mobilization strategy. The strategy that you develop, these guys must own it. Because if they don't own the strategy, any donor does what they call fact-finding mission. They check the system. So you go as an AYLF member, you say, I come from AYLF, I want to raise money to put up a dam. Tomorrow that donor is talking to your patron, and the patron says, I don't think that is right. We should not do that. You lose the opportunity. So they have to internalize what you want to achieve and work with you. The board also sets policy on acceptance of gifts. We have seen in particular scenarios whereby money is given for many things. In Kenya, private sector gave money for COVID, and then we were told the money was stolen. Who was responsible for that? Somebody should have set the rules for acceptance of gifts and how they're going to be spent. They also create policy on fundraising, who you can get money from and who you cannot get money from. For example, if you are a Christian organization, are you able to get money from people who are selling pornography? Okay. What are the policies behind that? Your ethics, your ethos, what do they define for you? So your board is supposed to set that for you. Then there are these other things. There's question of establishment of office dealing with resource mobilization. That's a board responsibility. The fundraising office that allows for systematic coordination. That's the board responsibility. The structure of your alumni. That's a board discussion. And all members have a key brand management issue. Any person you appoint to become your patron or a board member has a responsibility to make sure the brand they carry drives you forward. If they can't do that in a positive way, you can't have them in your board. The last thing is that you need to invest in capacity building. And the opportunity is there. There's quite a number of resources, materials online. But I will say this, resource mobilization is not something you learn in class. It is something you learn by doing. You do the first time, you get wrong. You do the second time, you get the sequence right. And sometimes even those who are called top fundraisers get it wrong. So we are not in the process of saying that this is an actual science. It is a very social science that allows you to adjust based on where you are. So you need to invest in capacity building, continuously assess the market and training needs, do benchmarking and share your ideas among yourselves, and build networks and approach issues together. Not as competitors, but as collaborators. Because if you go as competitors, you lose. You become cutthroat. But if you go as collaborators, whereby Faisal can recommend a donor to Anthony, or Anthony can recommend a donor to Alan Shepard, then you are collaborating in a way that allows you to mobilize resources in a better manner. So in the conclusion, you need to understand that resource mobilization is key for survival of many institutions, not only AYLF, not you as an individual. And as I've said before, resource mobilization is beyond fundraising. There are many other issues around it. Develop strategy, diversify sources of funding, treat each donor or partner in a special way. Let me tell you, even the one who gives you one coin, you need to recognize the one coin and treat them specially, because the day they get 1 million, they'll remember you. Establish and support a fundraising structure, as I mentioned before. Develop a structure that addresses your needs, capacity building. All these things that are here in my conclusion is something that I mentioned before. Don't play small, dream big. When I say don't play small, is that I'm saying that you need to think very broadly when it comes to thinking about fundraising. Now, I have one slide here. I don't know whether it's going to agree. There we go. From current slide, there we go. So this is something I call synergy building when you come to fundraising. And I call it synergy building because every fundraising or resource mobilization process that it follows the PCM cycle, which is a project cycle management movement. So it starts with initiation. You think of the idea, then you have to think through what are the needs, the assessment, the feasibility study. You have to think through about that. Feasibility study, by the way, doesn't have to have a consultant. You can do a feasibility study while seated wherever you are and ask yourself, how many people in that community need water? Where do they normally get their water? You know the community much better. So you can even come up with a feasibility study of your own, which is not even research oriented. Okay. Then you go to the design phase and look at the impact of what you want to do, the financial implication of what you want to do, the sustainability of what you want to do, and then the buy-in or ownership. Now, normally, I say up to that point, things are okay, and you're in control. And there's something I call a kill switch or salvage line. At that particular moment, you either can continue or stop. And at that particular moment, if you make a mistake, then the rest becomes useless. Because then we move to what you call implementation. And during implementation stage, you are what you call, you can only do crisis management. You can't review too much. You only can go back and say, I did this wrong, I need to manage it. I did that wrong, I need to manage it. So in this particular second stage, you're looking at the impact, financial sustainability, and buying based on what you designed. And that's what you want to review and see, did I hit my mark? Now, that kill switch line, if at all you hit your mark, your donor is happy with you, the cycle continues and goes straight on to initiation again. If your donor was not happy with you, believe you me, you'll be thrown out into the exit route. Okay? This is what I would say about resource mobilization, fundraising, as you guys want to call it, or project financing. And I will leave it at that, Faisal. I don't know if there's some questions.
Oh, wow. Asante sana, Mr. Anthony. Yeah, we can dive right into questions and answers. Let me just get any responses. Do you guys have questions? Just feel free to ask them. Would you like to answer all of them at once or one by one?
You are the boss here today. Maybe we can do one by one.
Okay. Any questions?
And I will share this presentation.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. I'm sure that would have been a concern. Thank you for offering. Guys, Salwa Kabaka.
Thank you so much, Madam Faiza, and thank you so much, our facilitator, for today. I actually don't have any question to ask, but I just want to thank you very much. You've really sharpened our minds, and we've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Okay. We normally say in Kenya, there are two things. Either guys understood everything or they understood
nothing. Okay, well, for me, I think what I actually enjoyed most was understanding that everyone is reachable if you just know what procedure to go through. Like how you said, if you want to reach maybe Mr. Anthony, who do you know? If you know Alan Shepard, who actually knows Gabriel, who knows Anthony, so it becomes actually easier to reach these people. And I think for me, that's, you know, sometimes this barrier, we feel like there are some people we can't get to because we don't have relationships with them, but then we forget to utilize the relationships we have with other people that actually know those people. So that was really just very key and very realistic. I feel like your presentation was quite realistic, and I enjoyed it from that perspective. because you get to see the exact things you need to do, and you understand the procedures you need to go through. And definitely it's not something you can just think about, but you have to actually do it to understand it more. So I really appreciate you for taking the time off. Salwa?
Yes.
Any question, any comments?
My comment, I'll basically supplement on what Moses said earlier and what Faiza you've been saying. Thank you very much for actually taking the time to take us through this. We've had to actually set up our own projects, but sometimes it's hard to mitigate something, especially when you don't know it in depth, or also maybe on a basic level. But the way you simplified everything, I also love the aspect of utilizing the resources we already have to get what you want. Because sometimes when we are doing projects, we think we only need the monetary help, but sometimes the in-kind help actually is like the best thing you need at that moment. So thank you very much for clarifying on that. And thank you very much for the people who have attended. The students, most of them are distance. I know the ones in the SLDP class, they're attending from different places since our university we are doing things online. So some of them are in different countries, some of them are in different districts, but they're taking the time to actually be here today. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. We really appreciate.
Okay, thank you, Salwa. That is actually the coordinator of the team. Thank you, Salwa. So any other comments, questions? If we don't have any, we'll probably have to end the call, but you still have a few more minutes to ask anything or contribute anything. A
Hello.
question for you, Mr. Anthony. Okay. Yes, Clyde.
Hello. So sorry, I joined late. I'm Clyde. I'm the group coordinator for AYLF University of Nairobi chapter here in Kenya. And what I can say, like, I feel enlightened because there are instances where we have projects, but when we are seeking monetary help, like we don't know the right channels or how to do it. Then I just learned that I have to learn, because I knew some, I thought I knew something, but after the session, I have learned that there is more I have to learn. So thank you for the platform. Thank you for our guests. It has been an amazing session. I'm looking forward to such of the kind, because I like it more when I learn. And it's always good to learn, because at the end of the day, I'll have, like today, I have already added an impact in my life, because currently as I'm speaking, I know something, that I didn't know of. So mine is just to say thank you for the platform, and thank you for the session.
Welcome.
Thank you, Clyde, and we are happy to have you here as well. So I have a question for you, Mr. Anthony. Did you actually did you study this particular aspect of your work, or did you just learn on the job?
Interesting question. So my background is information systems. Okay. So I studied in USIU. I did ICT, information systems technology, and I majored in networking. And so it's very interesting, because I use my networking knowledge of nodes in computers to understand network nodes of human beings. And then I spent a number of years working for GIZ, and that kind of honed my concept of fundraising, because I had a boss, a wonderful man, who helped me think through fundraising. He himself was an accountant, but he had a skill, and he had a skill of engaging with individuals, and especially donors, because he knew how to listen. He would listen to what the donor wants, and you'd look at what you want to do and find the synergy point. And once you have that synergy point, it becomes very easy. The conversation becomes very easy. But when you don't have the synergy point, and that's what I was talking about, being very clear about what your vision and mission is, what you want to do, and defining your shared values with that particular donor you want to engage with, or that friend you want to bring on board to help you to do one or two things. Because as I said before, it doesn't have to be money. It can be labor. Then you connect. Once you connect, it becomes very easy. So for me, I would say I learned it on the job, spending a lot of time in the fundraising space.
Okay. I feel like thank you for that response. I feel like for some of these student leaders, it's probably going to be the first time for some of them to actually go out and mobilize for resources. How did you used to take, like, I don't know if I should call them rejections, or where there were no responses or anything?
Interesting. So first and foremost, let me mention this. We in Strathmore are trying to develop a course around fundraising, or what you call in philanthropy, okay? And we'll see how that works. I know there's a Kenya Association of Fundraising Professionals who do this, but we feel like there's something missing in that whole setup. So we are trying to come up with more of a technical training on fundraising, because this is done in the West. It's not abnormal. So how do you take rejection? Let me put it the other way around. When you refuse to give a beggar money, what has gone through your mind? Okay, always ask yourself that question. Because if somebody is asking for money, give me 2 shillings, give me 5 shillings, whatever it is, and you say, no, or I don't have. Afterwards, if you think about it, what goes through your mind? Either you didn't have, or you didn't want to give, or you are not convinced you should give. So you as the person who is asking, when you get somebody rejects your proposal or your request, you need to sit down and analyze, what is it that I didn't do right? Number one, it might be that the person I was engaging or coming to ask for has never given and doesn't know how to give. So I've not done anything wrong. Or maybe I targeted the wrong person, okay? Number two, did I ask the right questions? Did I say the right things? Was the guy convinced of what I wanted to do? That's another question you need to ask yourself. Number three, was it the right amount that I was asking for? Now, guys, let me tell you one thing. Out of 100 proposals you submit, you might get funding for maybe 20, 25, out of 100. Okay? Now, if you're getting 40 out of 100, my friend, you don't know what league you're operating at. You're at a very high league. So for every 100 people you ask for money from, chances are 20 will give you. Okay? So don't expect that every guy you ask for resources will be happy to give. So don't take it negatively, learn from it, and move on to the next one. And then enjoy the small little wins. When you get little money from one individual, please celebrate. Celebrate like there's no tomorrow, because those little wins will allow you to be able to move forward.
Okay. Wow. So it's also a game of numbers, I see.
Yes, statistics come into it. in the future, when we start doing these trainings, we'll delve a little bit more into realistic statistical thinking and psychology. Yeah. And knowing, for example, if I want money from the Aga Khan Foundation today, I must show I'm going to help a Muslim community. That's part of psychology. Okay. If I want money from the Caritas fraternity, I must show I'm going to help the Catholic community. So these are the things, it's psychology you have to learn along the way. And that's what I was saying about the shared value part. So once you start doing that, then you start mapping out your potential donors. You start seeing the potential for money, where it's going to come from, based on what you want to do. And there are some of them you're going to say, this one I can't ask for this because I know he won't give or she won't give. But this one I can ask. So that part of sitting down and first thinking through the process, I would like and love when you guys come and tell me, I have thought for the last 1 year, and I know now I can only go to somebody called, I don't know, Mbandi, or I don't know who else, who is going to give me the money, because you have thought it through, you have analyzed it, you have targeted it well. Even the moment you meet with that potential donor, when you're explaining the issues to them, they can see you actually thought it through. So coming back to what I've just said before, when you're walking on the streets and somebody says, give me, first and foremost, you ask them, in your mind, you're asking, does this person know me? Have they thought through when they're asking me? And do they think even I have? You know, all those questions come through. That is what you call rushed asking. Okay. But then let's assume somebody walks into your office or into your dormitory and first gives you a story about their life. By the time they're through with you and they tell you, give me something, even if you don't have, you'll share whatever you have.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that response, Mr. Anthony. And I think it's safe to assume there's no other question or comment. I just want to give thanks on behalf of the AYLF community and of course the SLDP class for taking the time to actually be here and just share this knowledge with us. We do not take it for granted. We also have this session live on YouTube for some of our people who are not able to make it here. They can always refer to that. And if you would like to give any closing remarks, you can do that. Then we can go into just a closing prayer and we can end the session. I've really enjoyed it today.
Thank you very much, Faisal. I would have wished to have this thing, what do you call it, physically. Physically, it's normally better because you have more interaction, you have more engagement. But well, we are living in COVID times.
Yeah.
And we have to live with it. I am very happy that you guys actually are even thinking through this. I mean, you're in campus and you're already thinking about how to develop your fundraising agendas. That is a very, very good thing. It is a very interesting space. When you get the resources, I tell you, it's a lot of joy. When you miss to get the resources, it's a big challenge. So it's normally a very interesting space to work in. It's an interesting space to engage in. And I hope some of you in the future may decide just to become fundraisers. Look at your degrees and see whether you want to change at the master's level and do something on philanthropy. And I will be willing to work with you guys through that space. And thank you very much. Asante sana.
Asante sana as well. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask a lady to pray for us. Who's going to pray for us? Salwa.
Cynthia Nancy. Oh, sorry.
Who?